The glass dome of the Galactic Council Station reflected 1,000 stars, each one representing a world that had sworn to uphold peace across the known galaxy. Ambassador Juan stood at the center of the vast chamber, her dark suit a stark contrast to the colorful robes and biological variations of the alien delegates surrounding her. She had been standing there for 3 hours, repeating the same evidence, the same plea, the same desperate request for justice. "Honored council members," Jiwan said, her voice steady despite the exhaustion pulling at her bones. "This is the 3rd treaty violation by the Velkari Empire in 18 months. They have crossed into human territory, established military outposts on our agricultural worlds, and refused all attempts at diplomatic resolution. We have followed every protocol. We have filed every required document. We have waited for this council to act." The Velkari representative Velkas clicked his mandibles in what Jiwan had learned was their version of laughter. His chitinous armor gleamed under the chamber lights, and his compound eyes showed no trace of concern. "The human exaggerates, as always. Our presence on those worlds is merely to protect trade routes. If humans feel threatened, perhaps they should reconsider their aggressive expansion." Jiwan felt her jaw tighten. Aggressive expansion. They had called it that when humans built hospitals. They called it that when humans shared farming technology. They called it that when humans existed in space that the Velkari wanted for themselves. She opened her mouth to respond, but her cum device buzzed against her wrist. The message was marked urgent, from Captain Heinwu. She excused herself from the chamber, ignoring the dismissive gestures from several council members who clearly believed this was just another human drama. In the privacy of the observation deck, she opened the message. Heinwu's face appeared, and Jiwan knew immediately that something terrible had happened. His eyes were red. His expression was stone. "Ambassador Haven's Rest is under attack. Full orbital bombardment. We're trying to evacuate, but..." His voice cracked slightly. "We've lost contact with the northern settlements. 3,000 people, Jiwan. Maybe more." The connection cut out. Guan stood there, staring at the blank screen, feeling the weight of failure crushing down on her shoulders. Haven's Rest. A peaceful, agricultural colony. Home to farmers, teachers, families, children. She had visited there 2 years ago, had shared tea with the colony administrator, had watched kids playing in fields of golden wheat under an orange sky. She returned to the council chamber. Her hands were shaking now, but she didn't bother to hide it. She walked straight to the central podium, interrupting a trade dispute between 2 species she couldn't even name. "Haven's Rest is under attack," she announced. "The Velkari are conducting orbital bombardment on a civilian population. Right now, as we stand here debating trade routes and treaty language, human beings are dying." The chamber erupted in noise. Velka stood, his height towering over the podium. "Lies, human propaganda. We have conducted no such operation." Guan pulled up the data feed from Haiyan-Wu's ship. The holographic display showed it all. Velkari warships in orbit. Energy weapons tearing through atmosphere. Explosions blooming like deadly flowers across the colony's surface. The timestamp showed it was still happening. "The evidence is before you," Guan said quietly. "Stop them. Send peacekeeping forces. Enforce the treaties we all signed. Do something." The council debated for 2 hours. They formed a committee. They scheduled an investigation. They passed a resolution condemning all acts of violence by any party. They did everything except actually help. When the vote came to deploy council forces to stop the attack, it failed. 12 votes in favor, 15 against, 8 abstentions. Not enough. G1 watched the numbers appear on the display and felt something break inside her. Not her composure. Not yet. Something deeper. The belief that the system worked. The faith that justice mattered. The hope that peace was possible when everyone wanted it. Velkas approached her as she gathered her documents. "You must understand, Ambassador. The galaxy has rules. Procedures. We cannot simply rush to judgment because humans have a flair for drama." She looked at him. Really looked at him. Saw the satisfaction in those alien eyes. He knew exactly what he had done. The attack wasn't about territory or resources. It was a test, to see if the Council would protect humanity, to see if humans could be pushed around, hurt, killed without consequences. Now they both knew the answer. "You're right," G1 said softly. "The galaxy does have rules, and we followed them. Every single one. We tried peace, Velka's. We really tried." She left the Council station that night. Her ship, a small diplomatic courier, broke orbit and began the long journey back to Earth. She sat in the pilot's chair, staring at the stars, thinking about all the speeches she had given about cooperation and understanding, and the bright future where humans and aliens work together. The final casualty report came through as she passed the Neptune orbital checkpoint. 4,217 dead. Another 800 missing, presumed dead. Haven's Rest was gone. Not just damaged, gone. The Velkari had used weapons that cracked the planetary crust, triggered earthquakes, set the atmosphere on fire. They had wanted to send a message. They had succeeded. Giwan composed her final report to Earth's assembly. Her fingers moved across the keyboard, each word chosen with care. She didn't write about the Council's failure, or Velka's smugness, or her own crushing disappointment. She wrote about duty, about the choices that lay ahead, about the fact that humanity had tried the peaceful path and found it closed. "We tried peace," she wrote. "We believed in the Council. We trusted the system. We followed every rule, every procedure, every diplomatic protocol. We did everything right, and they killed us anyway. They killed us because they thought we wouldn't fight back, because they thought we had forgotten how, because they looked at our peace and mistook it for weakness." She paused, staring at the words on the screen. Then she added one more line. "They have given us war, and we will show them what humans do when peace is no longer possible. We will show them the other side of humanity, the side we hoped we had left behind, the side that conquered a world and reached for the stars through blood and fire and determination. We tried peace. Now they will learn why that was such a gift." She sent the message and sat back. Earth would read it. The assembly would debate. The military would prepare. And humanity would make a choice about what kind of species they wanted to be in this. Galaxy.G1 suspected she already knew the answer. She had seen it in Hyenwoo's eyes during that brief transmission, had felt it in her own heart as she watched the Council vote. Humanity had tried to be better, had tried to evolve beyond its violent past, had tried to prove that peace was possible. The galaxy had rejected that gift. Now they would see what came next. The war room in Geneva was built 300 meters underground. It's deep enough to survive anything except a direct hit from weapons that could crack planets. Fleet Admiral Taeyong stood at the head of the table looking at the faces of Earth's military leadership. These were people who had spent their careers managing peacekeeping operations and defending against pirates. None of them had fought a real war. None of them had needed to. "We're outnumbered," Taeyong said bluntly. "The Velkari have 1,500 warships. We have 230. They have weapons that can destroy moons. We have ships designed to patrol trade routes. By every standard military assessment, we should surrender right now and hope they're merciful." He paused, letting that sink in. Around the table, officers shifted in their seats. Director Yuna of Advanced Weapons Research kept her expression neutral. Commander Jiho of Special Operations leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. They knew what was coming next. "But humans don't fight by standard military assessments," Taeyong continued. He pressed a button, and the holographic display lit up the center of the table. "We fight by human rules, and human rules are very different." The display showed weapon systems, ship designs, tactical protocols, things that had been developed in secret over the past 10 years. Ever since Taeyong had started to suspect that the Council's protection was an illusion. They weren't illegal, technically. The treaties banned certain weapon types, certain ship classes, certain tactics. Humans had studied those treaties very carefully and found all the gaps. Yuna stood up. "We call it the Pandora Protocol. Everything we've been working on while the Council debated and delayed and protected species that wanted us dead." She gestured, and the display zoomed in on a sleek missile design. Kinetic kill vehicles? No explosives, no energy weapons, just mass and velocity. They're cheap to make and impossible to shoot down if you launch enough of them. The treaties don't ban them because most species consider them primitive. They are primitive, someone muttered. Yes, Yuna agreed. Just like swords and spears and rocks, primitive works just fine when you use enough of it. She pulled up another design. AI-assisted tactical networks. Every ship, every drone, every weapon system linked through quantum communication. Real-time coordination across light years. The Valkyrie fight with individual ship commanders making decisions. We fight as one organism. Jiho took over the presentation. Psychological warfare. Every species in the galaxy thinks of war as a formal process. You declare it, you fight set-piece battles, you negotiate truces. Humans invented total war. We invented guerrilla tactics. We invented making the enemy afraid to sleep at night. A smile was cold. The Valkyrie have no concept of what that means. We're going to teach them. Tae-young watched the reactions around the table. Some officers looked excited. Some looked scared. Good, they should be scared. What they were about to unleash would change the galaxy forever. We need authorization from the Assembly, someone pointed out. We have it, Tae-young replied. He pulled up Giwan's message, the one that had arrived 6 hours ago. The words appeared in the air above the table. We tried peace. Now they will learn why that was such a gift. The ambassador has made it clear. The diplomatic option is exhausted. Now we do what humans do best. And what's that? Another officer asked. We survive, Tae-young said simply. No matter what it takes. No matter what we have to become. We survive. The meeting lasted another 4 hours. They planned the mobilization. Every shipyard in human space would shift to war production. Every reserve officer would be called back. Every colony would become a fortress. They had 230 warships now. In 6 months, they would have 1,000. In a year, 5,000. Humans bred faster than most species. Humans built faster. Humans learned faster. It was why the Valkyrie wanted them gone before they became a real threat. Too late for that, Captain. Hyunwoo received his orders while his ship, the Perseverance, was still docked at Armstrong Station for repairs. The damage from Haven's Rest had been significant. Scorch marks along the hull where Valkyrie energy weapons had tested their shields. A crater in the port side where debris from the colony had struck them during the evacuation. 7 crew members dead? He read the orders twice. New weapon systems. New tactical doctrine. New mission parameters. He was to take the Perseverance and 12 other ships to the border of Valkyrie space and wait. Not to patrol. Not to defend. To wait, they want us to be bait, his executive officer said, reading over his shoulder. Oh Hunhwa replied, they want us to be the message. He looked at the timeline. 2 weeks until the refit was complete. 2 weeks until they would fly back to the region where Haven's Rest used to exist and show the Valkyrie that humans remembered. The refit was like nothing Hunwoo had ever seen. Engineers swarmed over the Perseverance, tearing out old systems and installing new ones. Missile tubes that could launch swarms of kinetic kill vehicles. Point defense systems controlled by AI that could react in microseconds. Electronic warfare equipment that could blind enemy sensors or feed them false information. Armor plating that would break apart under heavy fire, but scatter into clouds of debris that would shred pursuing ships. It's mean, one engineer told Hyunwoo admiringly. Every system is designed to hurt them back. Even if they destroy us, we'll take some of them with us. Let's try not to get destroyed, Hyunwoo suggested. Where's the fun in that? On Earth, the message went out. Every screen, every device, every communication channel. The Prime Minister stood before the camera, looking tired but determined. She was old, Hyunwoo knew. Had been in office during the first contact with alien life. Had believed in the dream of peaceful cooperation. Had watched that dream burn at Haven's Rest. Citizens of Earth, she began. We stand today at a crossroads. The Galactic Council has failed us. The treaties we signed have been revealed as meaningless. The peace we sought has been rejected. 4,000 of our people are dead. Their crime was existing. Their punishment was annihilation. She paused, and Hyunwoo saw something in her eyes that made his stomach tighten. Rage. Pure, focused rage. We tried peace, the Prime Minister continued. We tried diplomacy. We tried following their rules, speaking their language, becoming the kind of species the galaxy claimed to want. We tried, and they killed us for it. Another pause. Longer this time. Now, you will face the other side of humanity. The side we hoped we had evolved beyond. The side that fought for survival on a hostile world for millions of years. The side that conquered disease, famine, and death itself through sheer determination. The side that built weapons of unimaginable power and nearly destroyed ourselves with them. We put that side away. We locked it in a box and threw away the key because we wanted to be better. The Prime Minister leaned forward slightly. The Valkyrie opened that box. Now they will face what's inside. We tried peace. They chose war. And humans are very, very good at war. The transmission ended. Hyunwoo sat in his captain's chair, staring at the blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew was silent. They were all thinking the same thing. Wondering if they were making a mistake? Wondering if they were about to become monsters? Sir, his tactical officer said quietly. Are we ready for this? Hyunwoo thought about Haven's Rest. About the evacuation. About watching colonists die because he didn't have the weapons to stop the bombardment. About the screams on the cum channels. About the children who never made it to the transport ships. As he said, we're ready. The refit finished on schedule. The Perseverance and her 12 sister ships departed Armstrong Station in formation. They flew toward Valkyrie space, weapons armed, crews ready, carrying with them the promise that humanity had made. The sleeping giant was awake. The peaceful species had remembered how to fight, and the galaxy was about to learn a very old human truth. Peace is just the time between wars. And humans had been at peace for too long. The Valkyrie battle fleet arrived at Armstrong Station expecting an easy victory. 40 warships against what their intelligence suggested was a lightly defended human outpost. They had destroyed Haven's Rest without opposition. They expected the same here. Velkas himself commanded the fleet from his flagship, eager to add another human colony to his list of conquests. Captain Hyunwoo watched them come. His 13 ships were outnumbered 3-1. By traditional military thinking, they should retreat. Preserve their forces. Wait for reinforcements. Traditional military thinking was for species that had never fought themselves for survival. All ships, begin dispersal, pattern echo, Hyunwoo ordered calmly. Tacticals, start broadcasting our surrender on all channels. His executive officer looked at him sharply. Sir, do it, Hyunwoo said. Make it sound desperate. Tell them we're requesting terms. We're willing to negotiate. We're begging for mercy. I want every word dripping with fear. The Perseverance and her sister ships spread out, moving erratically, making it look like panicked retreat. The surrender broadcasts played on repeat. The Valkyrie fleet advanced, confident and eager. They formed up in a standard attack pattern, their heavy warships in front, support vessels behind. Range in 30 seconds, the tactical officer reported. Mines. Who asked? Deployed and waiting. The debris field is armed and ready. Humans had been at Armstrong Station for 20 years. In that time, they had mapped every asteroid, every piece of space debris, every chunk of ice floating in the system. When the warning came, they had worked frantically, mounting engines on asteroids, hiding weapons platforms inside derelict cargo pods, seeding the approach lanes with mines disguised as wreckage. The Valkyrie scanned for active threats. These weren't active. Not yet. 10 seconds, Tactical said. All ships report ready. Hyunwoo watched the display. The Valkyrie flagship was exactly where he wanted it, surrounded by lesser vessels, positioned in the kill zone. He thought about Haven's Rest, about 4,000 dead, about the smug certainty in Velka's voice at the council chamber. "Light them up," he ordered. The debris field came alive. Asteroids fired their hidden engines and accelerated straight at the Valkyrie formation. Cargo pods split open, revealing missile launchers that fired at point-blank range. Mines activated their sensors and locked onto the nearest targets. And the 13 human ships stopped running and opened fire with everything they had. The Valkyrie never knew what hit them. Their shields were designed to stop energy weapons and explosive missiles. The kinetic kill vehicles were just lumps of metal accelerated to incredible speeds. There was nothing to explode, nothing to dissipate. Just mass and velocity and basic physics. The human missiles punched through shields like they weren't there, and tore into ship holes. Velka's flagship shuddered as 3 asteroids slammed into it from different angles. Emergency alert screamed across his bridge. His tactical officer was shouting something about human treachery, about illegal weapons, about violations of every treaty. Velka's didn't care about treaties anymore. He cared about survival. Turn fire. He roared, "Destroy them all." But the human ships weren't where his weapons were aiming. They danced through the debris field, using the asteroids and wreckage as cover, appearing only long enough to launch another salvo of missiles before disappearing again. His point defense systems couldn't track them. His energy weapons hit nothing but empty space. "This is impossible," his tactical officer screamed. "They're moving too fast. Their coordination is too perfect." Velka's understood then. The humans weren't fighting as individual ships. They were fighting as one unit, their movements synchronized, their attacks coordinated down to the microsecond. Every ship knew where every other ship was. Every weapon system shared, targeting data. It was like fighting a single organism with 13 bodies. Commander Jiho watched the battle from his position on a captured Valkyrie, listening post deep in enemy territory. His team had taken it 3 days ago, quietly, efficiently, leaving no survivors to send warnings. Now, they used the Valkyrie's own equipment to monitor their communications. The panic in the enemy transmissions was satisfying. "They're requesting reinforcements," one of his operators reported. "Pulling ships from 3 nearby systems." "Good," Jiho said. "Tag those ships. I want to know their routes, their speeds, their weak points. We'll hit them before they reach Armstrong Station." His second-in-command frowned. "Sir, we're 12 people. Those are warships." "Yes, they are," Jiho agreed. "And they'll never see us coming." The Special Operations Doctrine was simple. Make the enemy paranoid. Make them see threats everywhere. Make them waste resources chasing shadows. Make them afraid to sleep. Jiho's team had been planting evidence of human infiltration across Valkyrie space. False sightings. Sabotaged equipment. Mysterious disappearances. The Valkyrie were starting to pull security forces from the front lines to search for human spies that didn't exist. Well, didn't exist in the places they were looking. Fighter pilot Sujin screamed as she pulled her craft through a turn that should have torn it apart. G-forces crushed her into her seat despite the inertial dampeners. Her wingman was dead. Shot down 30 seconds ago. She was alone against 3 Valkyrie interceptors, and her weapons were nearly empty. "Omega-7, you need to disengage," the carrier commander said in her ear. "Fall back to negative," Sujin interrupted. She had 1 missile left. 1 chance. The Valkyrie ships were faster, but they flew in predictable patterns. They didn't improvise, didn't adapt. They followed their training perfectly, which meant they were predictable. She cut her engines entirely and let momentum carry her forward. The Valkyrie overshot, surprised by the maneuver. In the 3 seconds before they could turn around, Sujin reactivated her engines, locked onto the nearest target, and fired her last missile. Then she did something completely insane. She flew straight at the explosion, using the expanding debris cloud as cover, came out the other side, heading straight for the second Valkyrie fighter. At the last possible second, she ejected. Her fighter, still moving at full speed, slammed into the Valkyr ship, and both craft disintegrated. Sujin's pod tumbled through space, watching the third Valkyrie fighter trying to find her. But pods were small, hard to target, and the human fleet had just arrived. She was rescued 20 minutes later. As they pulled her aboard the carrier, she was laughing. Couldn't stop laughing. She had survived something impossible. Had killed 2 enemy fighters with no weapons and no ship. The medics thought she was in shock. Maybe she was. But she had also just discovered something important. Humans were willing to do things the aliens wouldn't even consider. And that made all the difference. Back at Armstrong Station, the battle was ending. Of the 40 Valkyrie ships that had attacked, 32 were destroyed or disabled. The remaining 8 were fleeing at maximum speed. Of Hyenwoo's 13 ships, 2 were severely damaged, and 1 had been destroyed. Not great odds. But considering they had been outnumbered 3-1, it was a miracle. Velka survived. His flagship was crippled, life support failing, but he survived. Hyunwoo could have finished him. Should have, probably. But he didn't. Instead, he sent a message. This is Captain Hyunwoo of the Earth Defense Force to Valkyrie Fleet Commander Velkas. Your attack has failed. Your ships are destroyed. Your invasion is over. Return to your space and tell your leaders what happened here. Tell them that humans remember Haven's Rest. Tell them we will not stop. Tell them we tried peace and you rejected it. Now you face the consequences. He paused, making sure the message was being recorded properly. Tell them that this is just the beginning. Tell them that every ship you send, we will destroy. Every world you threaten, we will defend. Every attack you make, we will answer 100 times over. You wanted war? Now you have it. And you will learn what humans do to those who hurt us. The transmission ended. Hyunwoo sat back in his chair, feeling exhausted and hollow. They had won. But the war was just beginning. The Valkyrie would send more ships, bigger fleets, more powerful weapons, and humans would have to keep fighting, keep adapting, keep surviving. On the surface of Armstrong Station, crowds cheered as the news spread. Humanity's first major military victory. Proof that they could fight. Proof that the Valkyr could be beaten. But in his command center, Admiral Taeyong watched the casualty reports and knew the truth. They had won this battle because the Valkyrie underestimated them. That wouldn't happen again. The next fight would be harder. And the one after that, harder still. But humans would keep fighting. Because that's what humans did. They survived. No matter the cost. No matter what they had to become, they survived. And the galaxy was finally beginning to understand what that meant. 6 months into the war, Captain Hunua stood on the bridge of the Perseverance and stared at what used to be a Valkyrie mining colony. The planet below was dead. No life signs. No energy signatures. Just smoke and ruins and the lingering radiation from weapons that should never have been used. His weapons. His orders. His responsibility. Sir, the scan is complete, his tactical officer reported quietly. No survivors. Estimated civilian casualties are around 15,000. Hunwoo nodded slowly. 15,000. The mining colony had housed workers and their families. Children in schools. People living their lives. And now they were gone because Hyunwoo had received intelligence that the colony was building weapons. The intelligence was wrong. It had just been a mining colony. Just people trying to survive. Log it, he said. His voice sounded distant to his own ears. Add it to the report. Make sure command knows. He had killed 4,000 Valkyrie in the past 6 months. Maybe more? Ships destroyed. Bases obliterated. Soldiers who were just following orders. And now 15,000 civilians who happened to be in the wrong place when humans decided to strike first and ask questions later. Director. Yuna sat in her laboratory deep beneath Geneva, staring at her latest creation, the Eclipse Protocol, a weapon that could destabilize jump points and trap entire fleets in a star system. It was elegant, efficient, and absolutely terrifying. One deployment could end the war, could trap the Valkyrie fleet and force them to surrender, could save countless human lives. It could also trap billions of Valkyrie civilians in systems with no way to receive supplies, no way to evacuate, No way to survive if humans decided to keep them there. It was a weapon of genocide disguised as a tactical advantage. Her assistant, a young engineer named Junho, leaned over her shoulder. "It's brilliant," he said. "We deploy this at their 3 main fleet hubs, trap 90% of their military, and the war is over in a week." "And the civilians?" Yuna asked quietly. "Collateral damage. They started this war. They destroyed Haven's Rest. Why should we care about their civilians when they didn't care about ours?" Yuna dismissed him and sat alone with her creation. She had spent 20 years developing weapons, had always told herself it was for defense. For protection? For survival? But the Eclipse Protocol wasn't defensive. It was a weapon designed to hurt so badly that the enemy would have no choice but to surrender. And the people it would hurt most were the ones who had no say in starting the war. She composed her report to the War Council, detailed the technical specifications, explained the deployment strategy, and then added her personal recommendation: don't use it. Not because it wouldn't work, because it would work too well. Because humans would have to live with what they had done long after the war ended. War correspondent. Minho recorded another interview, this time with Commander Ji-ho, who had just returned from a mission deep in Velkari space. The commander looked like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes were hollow. His hands shook slightly as he held his coffee. "Tell me about the mission," Minho said gently. Ji-ho stared at his coffee. "We infiltrated a Velkari command center. Planted evidence of a coup. Made them think their own generals were betraying them. They executed 17 of their senior officers before they figured out it was fake. By then, their chain of command was chaos. We withdrew while they were still shooting at each other." "That's brilliant," Minho said. "Psychological warfare at its finest, is it?" Ji-ho asked. He looked up, and Minho saw something broken behind his eyes. "We made them kill their own people. Good soldiers. People who believed in their cause. We turned them against each other and watched them die. And we call it brilliant. We call it tactics. We call it necessary." He set down his coffee. His hand was shaken worse now. "I've killed 43 people in this war," Ji-ho continued. "Directly? With my own hands? I know their names. I saw their faces. Some of them were soldiers. Some were security guards. 3 of them were just clerks who were in the wrong room when we needed to maintain our cover." He paused. "Do you want to know the worst part? I don't regret it. Any of it. Because it saved human lives. Because it helped us win. Because that's what war is." Minho stopped recording. Some truths were too raw for broadcast. Ambassador Guan had returned to the Galactic Council, but not as a supplicant begging for help. She returned as a representative of a military power that had just claimed 3 star systems from the Velkari Empire. The council chamber felt different now. Quieter. More fearful. Other species watched humanity with a new expression. Not contempt. Not dismissal. Fear. A delegation of moderate Velkari officials requested a private meeting. Ji-won met them in a sealed conference room, security scanning for weapons and recording devices. The leader of the delegation, a female named Kelris, spread her arms in the Velkari gesture of submission.
"Ambassador Gua," Kelris said.
"We come to ask for peace." "Your government is still prosecuting the war," Kiwan pointed out. "Our government is led by warmongers who believe victory is still possible. It is not. We have seen the casualty reports. We have seen what human weapons can do. We have seen our fleets destroyed, our colonies abandoned, our people dying in a war we cannot win." Kelris clicked her mandibles nervously. "We wish to remove Velkas and his faction from power, to sue for peace. To end this war before there is nothing left of either civilization." Jawan studied the Velkari officials. They looked genuine. Scared and desperate and genuine? But this was a trap that could go so many ways. Help them overthrow their government and humanity became kingmakers, reshaping alien society to serve human interests. Refused to help, and the war continued. More deaths, more destruction. More nights like this where she couldn't sleep for thinking about all the choices that led here. "What would you want from us?" Guan asked carefully. "Safe passage for our key officials. Assurance that humans will support our new government, and Kelris hesitated, and mercy. When we take power, when we offer surrender, we ask that humans show mercy. Not for Velkas. He deserves whatever justice you demand, but for our people. For the civilians and soldiers who were just following orders? Following orders? Ji-won repeated. She thought about Haven's Rest. About 4,000 people who died because someone was following orders. That's not an excuse. No, Kelris agreed, but it is a reality. Most beings are not heroes or villains. They are just people trying to survive in systems they did not create. If humans cannot show mercy to those people, then you will never have peace. Only endless war, as every species fears what you might do to them. The War Council met to debate the Eclipse Protocol. Admiral Taeyong presented Yuna's findings. The weapon would work. Could end the war quickly. Could save thousands of human lives. But Director Yuna herself recommended against it. Why? Someone asked. Why develop a weapon if you don't want to use it? Yuna stood. She looked tired. They all looked tired. 6 months of war had aged them all. Because I wanted to know if we could. Because I wanted to give us options. And because I wanted to see if we were still the kind of species that would choose not to use it even if we could. That's idealistic nonsense, Taeyong said bluntly. We're at war. The Velkari didn't show Haven's Rest any mercy. Why should we show them any? Because we're supposed to be better than them, Yuna replied. That's what we told the galaxy. That's what we told ourselves. That humans had evolved beyond our violent past. That we were the species that chose peace. She gestured at the Eclipse Protocol schematics. This weapon proves we haven't evolved at all. We're the same violent apes we always were. We just got better at finding excuses. The room fell silent. Finally, someone asked the question that mattered. If we use this weapon, can we live with it? 10 years from now, 100 years from now, will we be able to look at ourselves and say we did the right thing? They voted. The Eclipse Protocol was approved but not authorized. It would be built, it would be ready. But it would only be deployed if humanity faced extinction. A weapon of last resort. A reminder of what they were capable of, but chose not to be. G1 sent her recommendation to Earth. Support the Velkari. Help them overthrow Velkas. End the war through political change rather than total military victory. Show the galaxy that humans could be merciful even after being hurt. Prove that the choice to try peace hadn't been weakness. The response came back. The Assembly authorized the operation. Commander Ji-ho and his team would extract the Velkari officials. The human fleet would provide covering fire during the coup, and when the new government took power, humanity would accept their surrender with conditions, but without. Cruelty Hyeon-woo received the new orders and felt something loosen in his chest, relief, hope, the faint possibility that they might end this war without becoming monsters. He broadcast the message to his fleet. Prepare for one more operation, one more battle, and then maybe peace. But he knew they would never go back to who they were before. The cost of this war wasn't just the dead. It was the part of themselves they had lost. The innocence. The belief that they were better. The hope that violence was something they had evolved beyond. They had paid for survival with their souls. And Hyun-woo wondered if that was a price worth paying. The monument on Haven's Rest was made from the melted wreckage of Velkari warships. 3,000 names were carved into the metal, each one representing a life lost in the first attack. Mireille stood before it, one hand pressed against her daughter's name, Sora, 8 years old. She had wanted to be a doctor, would have been brilliant at it. Now she was just a name on a wall. A year had passed since the war ended. A year since Commander Ji-ho's team had extracted the Velkari moderates and helped them overthrow Velkaz. A year since the new Velkari government had surrendered and signed the treaties that reshaped the galaxy. A year since humans had proven they could win a war and still choose mercy at the end. But mercy didn't bring back the dead. Didn't heal the scars. Didn't make the nightmares stop. Did we win? Someone asked behind her. Mireille turned. An old woman stood there, wearing a memorial pin for the colonies lost. I don't know, Mireille admitted. We survived. Is that the same thing? My grandson asks me that, the old woman said. He's in the military now. Signed up 3 months into the war. Came back different. Quieter. Sometimes I catch him staring at nothing, and I wonder what he's seeing. Narration knew that look. She saw it in her own mirror every morning. The look of someone who had learned too much about what humans were capable of. Both the glory and the horror of it. Captain Hyunwoo stood in front of a classroom at Earth's Naval Academy. 60 young faces stared back at him, eager and fresh and untouched by war. They had studied the Battle of Armstrong Station in their tactical courses, had analyzed his strategies, had memorized his successes. They thought war was equations and diagrams and clever maneuvers. The first thing you need to understand about command, Hyunwoo said slowly, is that every decision you make will haunt you. You will make the right choice, and people will die. You will make the perfect choice, and people will die. You will make the only possible choice, and people will die. And you will have to live with it. He pulled up images from the war. His ships, his victories, his mistakes. The Battle of Armstrong Station is taught as a brilliant tactical success. 13 ships defeated 40 through superior coordination and innovative tactics. What they don't teach you is that the Valkyrie ship I destroyed first had 200 crew members aboard. Or that 3 of them survived the explosion and suffocated in their escape pods before we could reach them. Or that I could have taken prisoners but chose to destroy them quickly instead because prisoners would have slowed us down. The classroom was silent. One student raised a hand. Sir, you did what was necessary. You saved Armstrong Station, as Hyunwoo agreed. I did what was necessary. That's what command is. Making necessary choices. But necessary doesn't mean easy. Necessary doesn't mean without cost. And necessary doesn't mean you get to forget what you did. He dismissed the class early. Teaching was harder than commanding. In command, you made decisions and moved forward. In teaching, you had to explain why those decisions mattered, had to help these young officers understand what they were signing up for, had to make sure they knew that the glory of victory came with the weight of consequences. Ambassador Ji-won walked through the halls of the Galactic Council as Secretary General. The position had been offered to her as both honor and apology. The Council acknowledged its failure, acknowledged that humanity had been right to feel abandoned, acknowledged that the system needed to change. She had accepted, not because she forgave them, because someone needed to make sure it never happened again. Secretary General, a junior aide, said nervously, the Valkyrie delegation is requesting a meeting about the occupation restrictions. Gi-won nodded. The occupation. That was a polite word for what humans had done. Dismantled the Valkyrie military, installed observers in their government, required reports on all industrial production, made sure the species that attacked Haven's Rest could never threaten anyone again. The Valkyrie delegation filed in, led by Kelris, who had kept her promises and maintained the peace. But Ji-won could see the resentment in the younger delegates' eyes. They had grown up during the war, had seen their empire humbled, had learned to fear humanity. We wish to discuss the timeline for removing human observers, Kelris said carefully. It has been a year. We have complied with every treaty obligation. Our people need to feel that their government is their own again. Give it another 5 years, Ji-won replied. The generation that started the war is still alive, still influential, still capable of convincing your people to try again, or not your conquered subjects, one of the younger delegates snapped. Ji-won looked at him, really looked at him, saw the pride and anger and fear, saw a young being who resented being told what to do by the species his leaders had tried to destroy. No, she agreed. You're not. You're a civilization that learned a hard lesson about starting wars you can't win. And we're the civilization that learned we're capable of terrible things when pushed. Now we both have to live with what we've become. Director Eunice stood in the vault deep beneath Geneva. The Eclipse Protocol was stored here, along with other weapons that humanity had developed but chosen not to use. Doomsday devices, planet killers, weapons that could end civilizations with a button press. I keep them, her assistant Junho asked. If we're never going to use them, why not destroy them? Because we might need them, Yuna said quietly. Because the galaxy is dangerous. Because the next threat might be worse than the Velkari. And because if we destroy the knowledge, we might forget what we're capable of. Might forget why we choose not to be that way. The weapons would stay there, dormant, waiting. A reminder that humanity had looked into the abyss and chosen to step back. For now, Commander Jiho sat in a bar on Armstrong Station, teaching tactical doctrine to a group of alien special forces officers. They had come from across the galaxy to learn from the humans who had won an impossible war, to learn the tactics and strategies that had broken the Velka Empire. The most important thing, Jiho told them, is to remember that you're fighting people, not targets, not enemies. People who have families and dreams and reasons for fighting. When you forget that, when you start seeing them as just obstacles to overcome, that's when you lose your humanity. One of the aliens, a reptilian species from the Outer Rim, tilted their head in confusion. But Commander, your psychological warfare techniques were designed to dehumanize the enemy, to make them afraid, to break their morale, yes, Jiho admitted. He took a drink. His hands still shook sometimes. And it worked. And it cost me. Every night I see the faces of the people I manipulated. The soldiers I made kill each other, the innocents who died because I was too good at my job. War requires you to do terrible things. But if you don't remember they're terrible, if you start thinking they're just tactics, then you become a monster. The alien officers left eventually. Jiho sat alone, drinking, thinking about the 43 people he had killed personally and the hundreds more who had died because of his operations. He had one, had been decorated, had been promoted, had been offered positions training the next generation of warriors, and he would never sleep. Soundly again, fighter pilot Sujin flew civilian transports now. Cargo runs between colonies. Medical supplies and trade goods and passengers who complained about turbulence. It was boring, routine, safe, exactly what she needed. She still had nightmares about the war. About the maneuvers that should have killed her but didn't. About the wingmen who hadn't been so lucky. About the Velkari fighters she had destroyed and the pilots who had died screaming in their cockpits. She had been awarded medals for her actions. Had been called a hero. Had been told she embodied the human spirit of survival and innovation. She just wanted to forget, but she couldn't. Every time she flew, she remembered. Every time someone asked about the war, she remembered. Every time she closed her eyes, she remembered. So she kept flying, kept moving, kept trying to find some purpose in a galaxy that had been changed forever by the war she had helped win. The Galactic Council held a memorial service for all those lost in the war, human and Velkari, soldier and civilian, the guilty and the innocent. Ambassador Jiwan stood at the podium, looking out at representatives from dozens of species, and tried to find words that mattered. We tried peace, she began. The words that had started everything. We believed in cooperation, in understanding, in the possibility that different species could coexist without violence. That belief was tested, was broken, was forged in fire and blood into something harder, something sadder, something wiser. She paused, looked at the memorial wall behind her. Thousands of names, tens of thousands. The cost of learning that peace required strength to defend it. Humanity learned many things in this war, Giwan continued. We learned that we are still capable of terrible violence, that we have not evolved beyond our nature, that when threatened, we will fight with everything we have and more. We learned these things about ourselves, and we were horrified by them, as we should be. Another pause. She could see who knew, the audience. Yuna, Jiho, Mireille. All the people who had paid the price for survival. But we also learned something else. We learned that knowing what we're capable of doesn't mean we have to be that way. That we can choose mercy even after being hurt. That we can choose peace even after proving we can win wars.